I finally have hands-on of a final shipping version of this, the brand new Lenovo Yoga Slim 7X. This is powered by the new Snapdragon X Elite. And boy, oh boy, do I have a lot to say about this. Now, of course, I want to give a huge shout out to our friends at Lenovo for sponsoring this video. I have actually spent a lot of time with the 7X because I've had a very early engineering sample for the last little while now. And if you've seen some of our videos talking about not only the Copilot Plus stuff as well as Snapdragon X Elite, you'll know that this is something that I've been really amped up about for a long time. But if you want to take nothing else away besides this from the video, the Snapdragon stuff is legit, and this Yoga 7X is one of the best implementations I've seen yet. So let me go through it bit by bit. You can hear a lot when you look at the marketing and see a lot of videos about the AI stuff. Copilot Plus, AI, AI, AI. You can ignore that and just treat this as a really good laptop. And I actually really think that that's the way that not only I'm thinking about this, but you should as well. Because all of the AI stuff is there and legit and coming, and it's all a real value add. But at the core, this, and I will say a lot of the other Snapdragon X Elite laptops, are just good devices. Good battery life, good performance. Look, they're just good, and they're relatively affordable. And then when you add all the extra AI stuff, it's sort of a thing that will make it more appealing, but I don't think you should buy these just because they're AI devices. And that's really what the marketing is kind of pushing, and obviously I'll talk about it. So I've been spending some time with the Yoga Slim 7X. It has really convinced me that this is the future of Windows. One of the ways I would describe the experience of using the Yoga Slim 7X is refined. So because the X Elite is so efficient, it has a few sort of impacts on your day-to-day use. So it's fast, it's snappy, not gonna take that away. I'm not gonna go through a bunch of benchmarks, but suffice it to say, it is a very, very quick chip. But on top of that, the efficiency means that it feels very nice to use. So for example, this has a pretty robust cooling solution. Now, this does have active cooling like you would expect, and most other X Elite devices do as well. But those fans, you can spend an entire day of regular use and not hear the fans once. Now, yeah, you'll definitely hear them if you start rendering a video or starting to game or something like that. They'll spin up and it's quiet, but it's decent. But for regular day-to-day use, it is incredibly quiet, bordering on completely silent. On top of that, it also doesn't get all that warm, which is something that I appreciate. Because look, I'm not gonna call anyone out, but I think we've all used a Windows laptop or two that gets incredibly warm or gets warm in your bag for no particular reason. That's really not something I've experienced with the Yoga Slim 7X. And when you put this together with the battery life, it is legitimately a bit of a game changer when it comes to the Windows space. So the X Elite chips are very efficient, but Lenovo paired this with a 70 watt-hour battery, which is pretty substantial for a 14.5-inch laptop that's this thin, meaning that you are getting actual legitimate all-day battery. I'm not saying that with like, oh, in airplane mode, watching video at 50 nits on the screen. No, like actually 8, 9, 10 hours of real-world use with like Edge and like 6 apps open and the whole thing. Like it's legitimately impressive. Now, if you need more battery than this on your thin and light laptop, I can't help you because these laptops basically have as good of battery life as anything, including and even better than a lot of Apple Silicon MacBooks. Going into this, I was a little bit concerned because Qualcomm had been talking such a big game about the Snapdragon X Elite chips since last year. And it was one of those things where like, oh, there's gonna be a bot, there's gonna be a catch, but there kind of isn't. A lot of apps, not all, but a lot of apps have been updated to be ARM native, right? So they run natively on the device, max performance, the whole thing. There are, of course, a lot of other apps that either have not been updated or may never get updated. But with the Prism emulator, what you get here is performance, which is also really pretty solid. I mean, unless you actually go in and check what app is being designed specifically for ARM versus like x86 or something, odds are you won't notice. There are very, very few incompatibility issues, really just some like anti-cheat in a couple games I've found. Almost everything else I've tried works, including gaming. You have to keep your expectations in check for a device like this, but you can game on this, and a lot of titles are very playable, like 1080p, low settings, 40, 50 FPS. Like, it's about what you would expect for a device like this, even though basically none of these games has been optimized. Just before finishing this video, I actually have found one other class of app that doesn't work, which are a lot of VPN apps. So this is NordVPN, for example, which straight up just refuses to install. It's not a great look if I'm being honest with you, but this has been the only app outside of a couple of games that straight up refused to install. Now to be fair, there is a manual workaround, but it would be nice if, a VPN app that's very, very popular could work on a very popular new class of laptops. Then there's price. So the 7X starts at $1,200. For that, you get the Snapdragon X Elite, 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage. And I think right now on the Lenovo site, it's like $80 or $90 more to jump up to a 1 terabyte SSD. That is very strong value, especially if we consider that an equivalent 13-inch MacBook is like $1,500 for this spec. And especially when you consider what else you're getting. Now, the Snapdragon X stuff is a very big component of it, but there are also a couple of features on this device that are legitimately incredibly good, starting with the screen. This is a 14.5-inch OLED pure sight 90 hertz panel. Now, if that all wasn't enough, it is incredibly bright. This goes up to 1,000 nits. I am not exaggerating. I know this is a sponsored video. I will make that super clear. This is sponsored by Lenovo. But this is maybe the best laptop screen I've ever used. Like, period. Now, if you've used OLED laptops in the past, you'll know that while generally speaking they're phenomenal, sometimes you'll see that, especially the ones that aren't like super high resolution, if you look up a little bit closer, you can see some of like the sub-pixel arrays and whatnot. This has almost none of that, at least to my eye. It's a 3K panel, and the fact that it goes up to the 1,000 nits, super color accurate, like, literally zero complaints. This is the gold standard, and the fact that it's 14.5 inches means that it's really pretty decent considering the size of the laptop. The other thing that I think is pretty much best in class is the keyboard. This keyboard has a 1.5mm key travel. It also has slightly sort of like domed switches, or I guess concave switches. And I actually had to talk to Lenovo about this because when I first used the 7X, I was like, it's very springy, like it feels good. And I was looking through the specs, didn't really mention anything. But talking with them, the keys are actually individually tuned. So I'm not entirely sure exactly which keys and how they've done it, but basically your sort of core keys are slightly springier than the others, which means that when you just jump on and start typing on this, it is phenomenal. Like, I got up to my full typing speed, I'm not exaggerating, in like 2 minutes. I will say, speaking of their premium suite, which encompasses a few other things, you've got yourself a quad speaker setup, you've got yourself a very large trackpad. I actually say I'm not a huge fan of the trackpad. It's very large, it's solid, but you do have the problem where it's very clicky on the bottom, but as you get toward the top, you really can't click it very well at all. That's one area I would like to see improved, but thank you for closing off my personalization. I appreciate that. Something else to mention is the webcam. Now, if you'll allow me to get a little bit into the weeds for a second. This is using a MIPI camera? I actually don't know how to say that, but basically, this is using a completely different type of webcam than most Windows laptops use. Most webcams in Windows devices are based on USB 2.0 specifically, which means that not only almost all the processing has to be done on the webcam itself, the laptop really has very little of control once it actually lands on the motherboard and the CPU and everything. But on top of that, it means that with this MIPI webcam, you have much more fidelity. It's basically the same kind of connection that your smartphone camera has, so it's way, way higher bandwidth. And it also means that the power of the Snapdragon X Elite and the ISP inside can actually do a lot more to help process the image. And because we have the NPU, as well as the quad microphones, which hopefully you can hear sound pretty good, you have all of these studio effects. Now, there are a ton of these things. You've got stuff like portrait light, which is slightly changed, although it's already kind of portrait lighting in here. But if I turn on the background effects, we've got the blur, which you'll see looks pretty decent. I like the portrait blur because it's a little bit less aggressive. And you also have the creative filters. So this is the illustrated filter, watercolor. The animated one I actually think kind of looks cool. And on top of that, you can do the eye contact thing. So I'm gonna turn this on and turn on teleprompter. So you can see that I am looking at my keyboard right now, but it kind of looks like I'm looking at you, right? Like even though I'm looking left and right, unless I'm doing something really crazy, it does a very good job of keeping me sort of locked in. Now, if I could give a little bit of creative criticism of this device, it would be with the port selection. So the good thing is this does have 3 full-feature USB-C ports, but the downside is that's all the port selection you have. There's no USB-A, there's not even a headphone jack on this laptop. Now, you do get a little switch to manually turn off the webcam, but I'll be honest with you, especially considering that this is a 14.5-inch device, not having a headphone jack is a little bit rough, and like, really, there's space for a USB-A. Like, I would happily trade one of these USB-Cs for a USB-A, so that's something I would like to see. They do give you this kind of hilarious dongle in the box. So it's got your headphone jack on here, as well as like a USB-A, but it also has HDMI and VGA. Now, the other thing to talk about, and really the main selling point, at least if you look at the marketing for these devices, is the Copilot Plus AI stuff. I'll be really blunt. The rollout specifically of Recall has been a bit of a mess. So if you're unfamiliar, Recall is a feature that will allow your system using the power of the NPU to constantly watch what you're doing and keep a record of it. So it's always taking screenshots, and it's doing a really good job of semantically understanding what's on the screen, images, text, you name it. So you can just hit the recall button and say, what email did I write 3 weeks ago? Or where is my reservation for this? Or where's my photos of Ken or whatever, which my Ken photos are always on the desktop. But the problem is that it was announced, but maybe not fully baked, so much so that they actually had to pull it out of launch. So as we're recording this video here, a day or two after the on sale date of this device, Recall is nowhere to be found. Now, other features such as Co-Creator, which is built into Paint, where you can use a little bit of AI imaging so you can sketch something, it'll build it out, or live captions, which is a legitimately really great feature that will pretty much caption anything that your computer can hear or you can watch on your system. These are all here, these are all great, but Recall is one of the big things, and it is currently delayed. So it will be opt-in once it actually ships, which, yeah, it should have been like that from the beginning, as well as they're spending some time apparently to help build out some of the encryption to make sure your data is very, very safe on your device. These are all good things. I'll give Microsoft some props. They're doing the right thing with Recall and doing what I had expected they would do from the very beginning. But I will also say it's been a little bit of a mess, especially if you buy one of these Copilot Plus PCs right now. The main selling point is not there. Now, it will be shipping at some point. I fully believe that. But I think that comes back to my original point of the AI stuff is great, but treat it as like, oh, cool, look at these great features. You know, that NPU is powerful for if I want to run Resolve on this. The NPU will actually do stuff like helping to run like masks and whatnot much faster than the CPU or the GPU could do. And there's a lot of features like the studio effects that leverage it. But the Copilot Plus part of this whole equation is, I still think, less important than the fact that this is just a really good PC, period. Now, on top of the stuff that's built into Windows, Lenovo have a few additional features which are nice. So their Creator Zone is coming soon, which gives you a lot more AI control over stuff that you can run locally on device. You also have their AI core built in, which is separate from the NPU. It's essentially a piece of hardware or silicon on the actual laptop that will help to optimize your power efficiency as well as the performance based on what app you're using. And I will give a huge shout out to Lenovo. Every Yoga in 2024 ships with 2 months of Adobe's Creative Cloud for free. Now that even applies if you're already a Creative Cloud subscriber, you'll just get $100 added. There's a lot that I like about the Yoga Slim 7X. I like the price, I like the performance, the battery life is phenomenal, screen, keyboard, there's so much here that is legitimately terrific. Now, of course, nothing is perfect, and I would like to see the ports improved as well as a better touchpad. And if it's me personally, wouldn't mind maybe like a 13-inch version, because while this is a very portable laptop, it is still a pretty big 14.5-inch display. But when you consider the price point, when you consider the performance, if you really just consider what you're getting with this, I think it is an incredibly compelling value. So thank you very much to the Lenovo team for sponsoring this video. If you would like to check out the 7X, I would definitely encourage you to do so at the link in the description. And definitely keep an eye out. Like, we've heard so much about this for so long, but this is an actual final retail unit. I've spent time with it, and I will tell you, it is the real deal.